The Great Hack is a documentary film about the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal. The Great Hack was awarded at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival in the documentary premieres section and was released by Netflix in 2019. The documentary focuses on Brittany Kaiser, who worked for Cambridge Analytica, and Professor David Carroll. Their stories want to expose the work of Cambridge Analytica in the politics of various countries, including the United Kingdom's Brexit campaign and the election of 2016 in the USA.
And the question I kept asking myself was, who was feeding us fear, and how?
When Project Alamo was at its peak, they were spending $1 million a day on Facebook ads.
They speak about Project Alamo, the company that took care of Trump's campaign. The brain of this project was Cambridge Analytica, beside Google, Facebook, and YouTube, and its CEO was Alexander Nix. They spent $1 million per day on Facebook ads, and in order to give personal ones, Cambridge Analytica needed personal data of everyone. In fact, they had 5,000 data points on every American voter, got through Facebook's service. This data could be used to predict the personality of every voter. From the personality, they could understand your behavior, and consequently, how you vote. This is the reason why now data is the most important resource in the world, whose value is worth more than oil. Cambridge Analytica was behind the election of Ted Cruz, collecting 14 months of data that was then reused for Trump's campaign. The surveys that Facebook has done were directed to the persuadables, people that were easily convincible. They bombarded them through blogs, websites, articles, videos, ads, on every platform they had. Cambridge Analytica did this until people saw the world the way they wanted them to, so until they voted for their candidate. David Carroll denounced Cambridge Analytica and wanted to have his data back. He asked them, where did they get data? How did they process it? Who did they share it with? Cambridge Analytica refused to give him his data, but later they pleaded guilty for not giving him it, and he probably will never have his data back. Brittany Kaiser worked for Cambridge Analytica, but she understood that everything they were doing was wrong. She had a lot of evidence indicting Cambridge Analytica, so she testified against them. After Brittany's testimony, Alexander Nix was subjected to a criminal investigation. She also stated that this technology is like a weapon and that personal data should be controlled by people because data is their property. We have the right to control and own our data, and this should become a human right so that it's illegal to own someone else's data.
A new Nielsen report suggests that in 2016 nothing will take away from television's role as a central medium in the communication strategy for the presidential campaign. June 30, 2015, Derek Willis, New York Times. All this turned out to be wrong. The tools that allowed Trump to become president are called Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Trump used the immediacy of these social networks to spread the fake news he used in his rallies. PolitiFact, the leading and most authoritative fact-checking site in the United States, estimated that during the election campaign, Trump told lies in 70% of cases, which also attracted many visits, meaning advertising revenue. This has created a vicious circle of fake news and money. Phil Mengzer, a professor at Indiana University, has calculated that about 13 hours pass between spreading a false news story and an article denying it, which means an eternity for social networks. In 13 hours, a news story can be seen by millions of people, especially in time of such important presidential nominations. Very often, this news spreads so much that it hides articles that tell the truth. Now the filter is us, explains Mengzer, but it's not our job, so we're not good at it. Then the Facebook algorithm intervenes to amplify its effects. Here we can see some stunning numbers about the most popular social networks. Facebook has 2 billion users connected and more than 1 billion active users each month. 500 million tweets are sent every day. 70 million images are uploaded daily on Instagram. 300 hours of video are uploaded every minute on YouTube. 71% of users admit to buying things seen on social networks. 52% of web marketers find customers on Facebook. 72% of adults connected to the network spend 23 hours a week on their social networks, the equivalent of a part-time job. The radio won Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Television and newspapers made Silvio Berlusconi win. Facebook and email marketing won Barack Obama. And without the social networks, Trump would never have become president of the United States. Marco Montemagno.
In recent years, social media has become a fundamental part of our lives. Social media influences every aspect of our life, especially elections, where journalists play a vital role. The first way journalists get involved in elections is by choosing which candidates to cover and how much. Research has shown that some candidates can be literally ignored because they can't win enough interest from the media, said Regina Lawrence, executive director of the UOSOJC's Agora Journalism Center. Lawrence, a nationally recognized expert on political communication, said this effect was most noticeable during the Republican primaries, when Trump generated an outsized proportion of the media coverage. He was able to get the equivalent of massive advertising buys without having to spend much money, Lawrence said. For the media, this disproportionate coverage was driven more by economic than political bias. In a competitive news cycle, news organizations publish stories that will drive traffic. And thanks to his pre-existing fame and ability to generate controversy, those stories were often about Trump. According to a recent Pew Research Center study, 62% of Americans get their news via social media platforms. What they might not realize is that the news they see is heavily filtered. What we see on Facebook is dictated by algorithms that decide what you see based on what you like and dislike, what you comment on and click on. On the other hand, social media gives users more direct access to candidates than ever before. With social media, voters may believe they have an intimate relationship with a candidate they will probably never meet in person. For most people, visuals carry an even more powerful impact than words on a page. Visual communication research has shown that images, especially of political candidates, convey emotions, actions, realism, and credibility. These images form a lasting impression in the mind of the voting public. Look at how different newspapers across the country presented the story of the nomination of Hillary Clinton as the first female candidate from a major party. Some led with a dominant photograph of Hillary that positioned her in a favorable light. Some led with an image of her husband, and other newspapers led with an image of Donald Trump.